Some of the things that are good for compost, as you can see in the top, cardboard, any kind of paper material is a good bedding for the worms. They like cardboard. They like paper napkins. They're nice dry material to balance out the more wet material, the more green material, like the banana peels and such. So banana peels are good for the compost. They add potassium. The coffee grounds are good for the compost. They add nitrogen and grit for the worms. Any vegetable that hasn't been salted and overly processed is good for the compost. Besides onions, onions and garlic are antifungal, and so they kind of slow down the system, and evidently worms don't like them. And citrus. Citrus is also kind of a anti-decomposer. It helps preserve things a little more, and we want things to grow fungus in the compost system and decompose. Eggshells are very good for the compost. A lot of times I'll scrunch mine up before I put them into my compost to help them break down a lot more. Otherwise, the worms will go right into the eggshells and just hang out in there, and you'll have a bunch of eggshells in your compost because they don't decompose as fast. It's okay to have little pieces of eggshells out in your garden, and eventually they'll decompose. But you don't want big, huge eggshells and a bunch of red wigglers hiding inside. You want to keep it nice and moist, but not overly wet. So the paper material, the cardboard, and brown material helps to keep it balanced that way. Not too many you want all the vegetables, but you want to balance it with the cardboard, which is also a good bedding for the worms. So this year, I did not pay attention to my bottom two trays, the last couple months of summer, which I don't usually, and they're usually fine, but this year I guess it was too long without rain, and they got completely dried out. I just put in some of the top compost in here, and as you can see, the red wiggler worms, and this is some good compost, finished compost. But underneath that were the bottom compost that was completely dried out, shriveled up, powdery, and there was tons and tons of roly-poly bugs in there instead of worms. Now, we want worms because worms worms are good for composting. They add a lot of good bacteria to the soil. And roly-poly bugs, they're also good at composting. But when you have a dry compost, you have a whole bunch of roly-poly bugs, which I'm not seeing them right now. But I'll show them on the bottom tray. There was a bunch. And when you put those in your garden, they're good at decomposing, but they also are good at eating emerging seedlings, which I have found in my garden, which I often have a lot of roly-poly bugs. Not this year, though, because the chickens seem to have really helped with that, eating those guys. We like them because they decompose things, but we don't like them because they eat our seedlings. So